Have you ever imagined driving alone on a deserted road in the middle of the night when suddenly your car stalls while crossing a bridge? The engine stops, the lights go out, and all you hear is absolute silence. Until you realize you're no longer alone. Sounds like a scene from a horror movie, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this actually happens on some Canadian bridges, and that the locals know these stories so well that they take kilometer-long detours just to avoid passing through there after dark? Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through 7 cursed bridges scattered across Canadian territory, each with its own macabre history, each avoided by locals who know all too well what happens when the sun sets. I'm not talking about urban legends invented on the internet or exaggerated stories to scare tourists. These are real bridges, with names, locations, and documented accounts that go far beyond what any rational mind can explain. There's a bridge where human shadows follow the cars that dare to cross it at night, always maintaining the same distance, always at the limit of peripheral vision. Another where dozens of people have disappeared over the years without leaving absolutely any trace, as if they had been swallowed by the air. And there's that one where the vehicles themselves seem to have a life of their own, shutting down for no apparent reason, leaving drivers trapped in the middle of the structure while an invisible presence circulates around. What would you do in this situation? Would you stay in the car waiting, or would you run into the darkness? Stay with me until the end, because the story of bridge number 4 will affect you in ways you can't even imagine. I'm talking about a structure located just a few hours away from major urban centers, where ordinary people like you and me, have reported experiences that changed their lives forever. And the most disturbing thing, many of these accounts are eerily similar, even coming from people who never met and who visited the place at completely different times. If you enjoy mysteries, haunted places, and stories that defy logic, hit this like button and turn on notifications, because this channel investigates the darkest and most forgotten places in Canada, the ones no one dares to talk about openly. What you're about to discover might surprise you, scare you, and perhaps even make you rethink that nighttime trip you were planning. Now, let's get to what really matters. Understanding why Canada, this vast and seemingly peaceful country, hides so many dark stories within its ancient structures. Canada was built upon forgotten tragedies. This is the hidden truth that few people talk about when we admire its majestic landscapes and modern cities. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, thousands of workers, many of them immigrants desperate for a better life, died building railroads, bridges, and tunnels through impossible terrain. The Canadian winter is unforgiving, and these structures were erected under such brutal conditions that some of them literally became mass graves. These weren't just isolated accidents. We're talking about dozens, sometimes hundreds, of deaths on individual projects, bodies that were often not even recovered, simply left behind as construction progressed. This mentality of progress at any cost left deep marks, not only on history but seemingly on the very energy of these places. And when you understand this context, the stories I'm about to tell you take on a completely different weight. These aren't just old bridges with ghost stories. They are unintentional monuments to human suffering, places where the veil between our world and something beyond seems to have been torn by the terrible circumstances that occurred there. Get ready, because we're about to begin our journey through the 7 most haunted bridges in Canada, and each one will show you a different aspect of the inexplicable. Starting with 7th place, we have the Devil's Elbow Bridge, located in the Muskoka region of Ontario. The name gives it away, doesn't it? Devil's Elbow. This wooden bridge was built in 1907 to facilitate the transport of timber across a particularly dangerous stretch of the river. During construction, 3 workers drowned when a flash flood swept away the partially constructed structure. Their bodies were never found. What makes this bridge particularly unsettling is the phenomenon that dozens of people have reported over the decades. When crossing it at night, especially during the fall, you can hear knocking sounds coming from under the bridge, as if someone were hammering wood. The sound is so real, so physical, that many drivers stop their cars, convinced that there are workers making repairs underneath. But when they get out to check, there is absolutely no one there. The silence that follows is described as oppressive, as if the air itself had weight. Locals simply don't cross this bridge after sunset. They take an alternate route that adds 20 minutes to the journey, but they prefer this to facing whatever awaits at Devil's Elbow. The 6th bridge on our list takes us to the interior of British Columbia, to the Alexandra Bridge. a suspension bridge originally built in 1863 over the Fraser River. This bridge has a particularly tragic history linked to the Canadian gold rush. During those years of fever and greed, dozens of people attempted to cross the Fraser River at this point, many dying in the process. The current bridge, rebuilt in 1926, sits beside the ruins of the original structure, and that's where things get strange. Visitors consistently report feeling like they're being pushed while walking across the bridge, even on windless days. It's not a breeze, it's not their imagination. People describe it as a physical pressure on their backs, as if invisible hands were trying to force them toward the edge. One woman who visited the site in 2018 shared her experience online, saying she felt something grab her ankle as she walked, causing her to stumble. When she looked down, there was nothing there, but the sensation of fingers around her leg lingered for several minutes afterward. The most chilling detail: photographs taken on the bridge often show mists or patches that were invisible to the naked eye at the time the picture was taken, and some of these patches appear to have distinctly human shapes, always close to the people in the photos, as if they were watching over their shoulders. Our fifth bridge is in Quebec City, and here the tension rises considerably. The Pont Rouge, or Red Bridge, located on the outskirts of Montreal, earned its name not from the color of its paint, but from blood. In 1955, a brutal accident involving a school bus during an ice storm resulted in the deaths of 11 children when the vehicles skidded and plunged into the icy river below. The impact of this event on the local community was devastating, and to this day flowers are left at the site every year on the anniversary of the tragedy. But wait until you hear what happened next. Drivers crossing this bridge at night, especially during the winter months, report seeing small hands pressed against the car windows, leaving marks that disappear seconds later. Others speak of children's laughter that seems to come from inside the vehicle itself, even when they are completely alone. One truck driver described in a local interview how, crossing the bridge one January morning, he felt his truck become inexplicably heavier, as if dozens of people had climbed onto the truck bed. When he stopped to check a few kilometers later, it was completely empty, but the rear tires were so compressed that they seemed to be carrying an additional ton. The witnesses were never the same after these experiences. Many describe recurring nightmares, a persistent feeling of guilt they can't explain, as if they had left someone behind on that bridge. We've now reached the fourth position, and this one will really get to you, because we're no longer talking about remote, forgotten places in the middle of nowhere. The Luffid Highway Bridge in British Columbia is less than an hour from Vancouver, one of Canada's largest cities. Millions of people cross this region every year, and the bridge itself looks completely normal during the day. But when darkness falls, something changes. This bridge has the highest number of unexplained accidents of any similar structure in the province. Cars simply shut down while crossing it. New batteries die instantly. Electrical systems fail for no reason. But the most disturbing part was yet to come when investigators began documenting the reports. Dozens of people, in separate incidents over decades, described the same figure: a man wearing old work clothes, standing on the side of the bridge, always in the same specific spot. When drivers stop to offer help, thinking it's someone with car trouble, the figure simply disappears. It doesn't walk to the side, it doesn't move away, it vanishes. In 2019, a security camera installed by traffic authorities captured something that, to this day, has no official explanation. For 3 consecutive nights, around 3 in the morning, the camera recorded a humanoid shadow crossing the bridge, but without any physical body projecting that shadow. Just the shadow itself, moving against the wind, against logic, against everything we know about how the world works. The revelation of these images caused so much discomfort that they were quickly removed from official systems, but copies still circulate today in forums dedicated to the paranormal. These 4 bridges alone are enough to make anyone think twice before taking a nighttime road trip through Canada. But remember, I told you there were 7 stories. The 3 remaining ones are even more intense, better documented, and the reported phenomena are so consistent that even staunch skeptics begin to question their own beliefs after hearing them. The impact of these stories goes beyond entertainment or morbid curiosity. They force us to confront the possibility that our understanding of reality is incomplete, that there are layers of existence that we simply cannot access with our limited 5 senses. If these stories are making you rethink your own experiences, if you've ever gone through something you couldn't explain, comment below. I believe. I want to know how many people here recognize that there is something beyond what we can see and touch. Before we continue, I need to take a quick break here because I know you might be feeling the same thing I feel every time I delve into these stories. That mix of fascination and thrill that only true mysteries can evoke. And that's exactly why this channel exists, you know? To create this space where we can explore together these forgotten places, these abandoned bridges, and these stories that most people prefer to ignore or pretend don't exist. If this type of content affects you the way it affects me, I'd like to ask you a favor. Leave a comment below telling us which of these stories I've mentioned so far intrigued you the most. Do you believe there are inexplicable forces in these places, or do you think everything has a rational explanation? Have you ever had a strange experience on a bridge, a deserted road, or any abandoned place? Tell us about it, because these stories in the comments create a true community of people who share the same fascination with the unknown. And look, if you're enjoying this video so far, click the like button because it really helps the channel grow and reach more people who, like you, are passionate about mysteries and haunted places. Your participation here is what keeps this channel investigating these stories, traveling to these forgotten locations, and bringing quality content about the darkest corners of Canada. Every like, every comment, every share makes all the difference so I can continue producing this kind of material. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the perfect time. Click the subscribe button and activate the bell, because every week there's a new video exploring abandoned places, deactivated psychiatric hospitals, ghost towns, and of course, more cursed bridges you never even imagined existed. You won't want to miss what's coming, I guarantee it. Let's delve even deeper into these stories, because the 3 missing bridges represent something different. They are not merely places where strange phenomena occasionally occur. They are locations where the line between our world and another dimension seems to have been permanently broken, where the transformation of an ordinary structure into something profoundly disturbing has happened so completely that even the local authorities acknowledge, albeit discreetly, that something inexplicable is taking place. The 3rd bridge on our list is located in Saskatchewan, and very few people outside the region know its history. The Moose Jaw Creek Bridge was built in 1932, during the darkest years of the Great Depression. At that time, economic desperation had transformed the mindset of entire communities. People made unthinkable choices to survive, and this bridge witnessed some of the most tragic decisions of that period. Between 1933 and 1935, 8 people took their own lives by jumping from this bridge into the icy waters below. 8, in less than 3 years. The psychological impact of this on the small community was devastating, creating a cycle of hopelessness that some say has never been completely broken. But wait until you hear what happened next. In the following years, people began to report that, when crossing the bridge at night, they felt an overwhelming pressure in their chest, a sadness so deep and sudden that many had to stop their vehicles because they could no longer see through their tears. This is not normal melancholy. It's an overwhelming wave of despair that comes out of nowhere and disappears as soon as you leave the bridge behind. A local paramedic described in a radio interview how he responded to numerous calls over the years from drivers who stopped on the bridge in complete emotional collapse, unable to explain what was happening to them. The most chilling detail: when you're at the exact spot where most people jumped, there are consistent reports of a voice whispering a single word: jump. It's not loud, it's not obvious. It's a whisper, so subtle you can almost convince yourself you imagined it. But when multiple people, at different times, over decades, report hearing the exact same thing in the exact same spot, you begin to realize there's a pattern here that goes far beyond coincidence or mass hysteria. Our second most haunted bridge is located in Nova Scotia, and this one has a history that blends tragedy with something that can only be described as genuine evil. The Angus Macdonald Bridge, also known locally as the Old Bridge, connects Halifax to Dartmouth over the harbour. In 1975, during a particularly violent blizzard, a chain reaction accident involving 17 vehicles resulted in the deaths of 5 people and left 12 others seriously injured. What subsequent investigations revealed was disturbing. The accident was not caused by ice or reduced visibility. It was caused by something investigators described only as inexplicable behavior on the part of the drivers. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a child standing in the middle of the bridge, and in trying to swerve to avoid hitting the child, they initiated the chain reaction. The problem: there was no child. None. The security cameras of the time, although of inferior quality by modern standards, showed nothing but cars skidding and colliding. But more than a dozen people swore they saw the same thing: a small girl, wearing a red coat, standing completely still in the middle of the road. Since that day, drivers continue to report sightings of this figure. She always appears in the same stretch of the bridge, always wearing red, always absolutely still, even with cars passing at high speed. And here's what will make you think twice. When drivers slow down or stop to check, they realize that the child has no face. It's not that it's obscured by distance or darkness. There simply is no face, just a smooth void where there should be human features. The witnesses were never the same after these experiences. Several people sought therapy. Others completely changed their work routes so they would never have to cross that bridge again. A taxi driver with 30 years of experience in the city simply left the profession after an encounter with this apparition, saying that no amount of money was worth the risk of seeing it again. And finally, we arrive at the most haunted bridge in all of Canada. Number 1 on our list, and this story will haunt you. The Screaming Tunnel Bridge is located in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and its reputation is so sinister that it has been the setting for multiple horror films over the decades. The tunnel under the railroad was built in the early 20th century, and the best-known story involves a young woman who, according to legend, was burned alive there after escaping a burning house. But the hidden truth is even more disturbing than the legend. Historical records show that during the tunnel's construction, workers discovered human remains, many remains, suggesting that the site had been used for much darker purposes even before the railroad existed. The phenomenon that gives the tunnel its name is real and documented. If you light a match inside the tunnel at night, you will hear a scream. It's not an urban legend someone invented. Dozens of paranormal investigators, skeptics, and even television programs have tested it, and the result is consistent. The scream is so loud, so full of agony, that many people drop their matches and run before they even go out. But the most disturbing thing was yet to come when a group of researchers installed recording equipment at the site in 2016. They captured something that remains unexplained to this day. In addition to the scream, there are whispering voices in a language that linguists have been unable to identify, followed by a pattern of beats that repeats exactly every 3 minutes and 47 seconds, always, without variation, as if something were trapped in a time loop, repeating the same moments infinitely. Visitors report intense physical sensations, burns that appear on the skin without a heat source, the smell of smoke when there is no fire, the sensation of being touched by multiple hands at the same time. A couple who visited the site in 2020 shared photos showing burn marks on the tunnel wall, marks that were not there when they entered and that disappeared hours later. The transformation of this place from a simple railway passage into a portal to something incomprehensible is complete. The residents of Niagara Falls don't mess around with the Screaming Tunnel. They keep their distance, warn tourists, and there are even unofficial signs put up by locals warning about the dangers of entering after dark. What all 7 of these bridges have in common goes beyond individual tragedies or paranormal phenomena. They represent something fundamental about places where intense suffering has occurred. There's a theory among paranormal researchers called the stone tape theory, which suggests that environments can record traumatic events and reproduce them under certain conditions, as if the very materials of the construction had absorbed the energy of those terrible moments. But these bridges seem to go beyond that. They aren't just replaying the past. Something within them is active, conscious, interacting with the people who dare to cross them. The journey across each of these structures becomes a revelation about the limits of our understanding of reality. These aren't just frightening places, they are portals to much deeper questions about consciousness, death, time, and the nature of existence itself. And when you really stop to think about the implications of this, when you consider that thousands of people have had similar experiences in locations separated by thousands of kilometers, you begin to realize that perhaps, just perhaps, our scientific and rational view of the universe is leaving out something fundamental. If you've made it this far and are feeling that shiver down your spine, that mix of fear and fascination, write in the comments, "I need to know more," because this conversation is far from over. Let me ask you a question that might change how you see these stories. Did you notice anything in common among all 7 of these bridges? It's no coincidence that virtually all of them involve water, darkness, and that oppressive feeling of being watched by something you can't see. Water has always had a profound symbolic role in virtually all human cultures. It's seen as a barrier between worlds, an element of transition and transformation. And bridges, by definition, are structures that allow us to cross these barriers. So what happens when you combine a place of passage with intense tragedies, with violent deaths, with human despair at its most extreme? Perhaps you create a kind of rift, a point where the normal rules of reality don't fully apply. Now, I know there are different perspectives on all of this. Some people will say that these are just stories to scare tourists, that everything can be explained by group psychology, suggestion, or simply coincidences interpreted through a lens of fear. And look, that's a valid position. The human brain is incredibly skilled at finding patterns even where they don't exist, at transforming normal shadows and sounds into something sinister when we're afraid. But then you have to ask yourself, how do you explain cases where people who have never heard of these stories, who had no idea of the reputation of these places, report practically identical experiences? How do you explain physical evidence such as burn marks, documented electrical faults, audio recordings that capture sounds that shouldn't exist? On the other hand, you have those who firmly believe that places where tragedies occur absorb this energy, that intense human suffering leaves a permanent mark on the fabric of reality. This perspective suggests that consciousness and emotion are not merely internal processes of the brain, but forces that can impact the physical environment around us. It's a radical shift in mindset that challenges everything we've been taught about how the world works. But let me ask you the most important question. What would you do if you had to cross one of those bridges alone at 3 in the morning? Would it just be another road for you? Or would that knowledge, those stories, completely change your experience? Because in the end, the truth about these places may not be as important as the impact they have on us, on how they make us question, feel, and react. If you're reflecting on this right now, on what your real reaction would be in this situation, write in the comments, I would cross or no way. I want to see who here is truly brave. So these are the 7 Canadian bridges that locals avoid after dark. From the Devil's Elbow Bridge in Muskoka, with its ghostly rattling sounds emanating from beneath the structure, to the Screaming Tunnel at Niagara Falls, where the simple act of lighting a match can summon screams of agony that echo through time. Each of these bridges carries its own history of tragedy, its own manifestations of the inexplicable, its own silent warnings for those who know how to listen. Now I really want to know from you, would you have the courage to cross any of these bridges alone at night? Or perhaps you know of a haunted bridge in your own region, a place that people avoid but few talk openly about. If you live near any of the bridges I mentioned today, or if you've ever had a strange experience in a similar place, tell me in the comments. These personal stories are what make these investigations truly alive, what connects us as a community of people who know that there is something beyond what we can rationally explain. And if you've made it this far with me, to the end of this journey through these 7 cursed bridges, right, I made it to the end. I want to see how many of you really have the stomach for these stories. If this type of content resonates with you, if these investigations into abandoned and haunted places in Canada make sense, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week I bring new stories, forgotten places, revelations about the darkest corners of this immense country. And look, a like also helps a lot. It's not just a number, it's a way of saying that this content is worthwhile, that these stories deserve to be told and shared with more people who, like you, feel this fascination with the unknown. And since you're here, there's a video right next to this that will perfectly complement what we've just explored. I'm going to show you the most terrifying abandoned psychiatric hospital in Canada, a place where former employees swear they hear screams coming from wards that have been closed for over 40 years. It's an even more intense investigation, with even more disturbing evidence. Click and stay with me there, because this is one of those stories you won't be able to get out of your head. Until then, consider this. If you need to cross a bridge at night, any bridge, it might be better to go before sunset. And if that's not possible, well, at least now you know you're not alone in those places. The question is whether that makes you feel more at ease or more scared. God be with you. And until the next investigation,